Yeah, I can do that. I don't even know if I can fight.
Y'all ready to have a meeting?
Let's have one.
My name is Rodney and I'm an addict.
Hey, Rodney.
Hey, welcome to the GRCNA 41 Together We Grow. Welcome to our workshop of rekindling the fire for recovery. Let's open this moment. Let's open with a moment of silence, followed by the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Welcome to the GRCNA 41 Together We Grow. Our intention for this convention is to make available to our fellowship a weekend for recovery, celebration, and fun. We hope that all addicts receive the NA message of recovery while they are participating in this event. It is our hope that the message we carry may truly let anyone know that NA is a place to recover and that no addict seeking recovery need die from addiction. This workshop is not being shared on Zoom, but the audio portion of the workshop is being recorded using the Zoom platform. I have asked a volunteer to read our readings. First one, how it works.
My name is Donna, I'm an addict. And this is how it works. If you want what we have to offer and are willing to make the effort to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. These are the principles that made our recovery possible. 1, we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, we humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to all addicts and to practice these principles in all of our affairs.
Thank you. The 12 traditions of NA.
My name is Nick. I'm an addict.
And Nick?
These are the 12 traditions of NA. People we have only with vigilance, and justice, freedom for the individual comes from the 12 steps. So freedom for the group springs from our tradition. As long as the ties that bind us together are stronger than those that tear us apart, all will be well. 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on NA unity. 2, for a group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as He may express Himself in our group conscience. Our leaders have been trusted servants that do not govern. 3, the only requirement for membership is the desire to stop using. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or NA as a whole. 5, each group has the one target that will carry the message to the addict that still suffers. 6, an NA group never endorse, finance, or lend the NA name to any related facility or outside enterprise. Those problems of money, property, or prestige diverse from our primary purpose. 7, every NA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Narcotics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, NA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to serve. 10, Narcotics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the NA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. And 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
Thanks for reading. So at this workshop, we have 2 speakers, and our first speaker is going to be Lee H. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks. I'll stand for a little while and maybe get tired of it. Or y'all get tired of me, and then I'll sit down. So either when the time runs out or I get completely boring. Ace is in my home group, so he has to listen to me share often. And so I'm really grateful to be here. I haven't been to a convention probably in 20 years. And actually it was another member, Ace was one that I saw doing this every year. And it really inspired me from attraction, not a promotion, to do a little more. And I've found that what the life that I live, it doesn't really require a lot of me. Now, that's not what I always thought. Somebody said work in a program, it meant something difficult. It meant, a graduate seminar where you get tested, and you're gonna have to spend nights, you're gonna have to make a sponsor. Get a sponsor who's gonna torture you all the time. And most of all, you never have any fun. And program it doesn't sound like fun to me. But I was really grateful to be able to come here. And I was told, the structure was not that important. It was just more important about sharing my experience and on the topic, which is rekindling the flame of recovery. And when I was thinking about that, now I got clean in 97, so 25 years. And that was right after a relapse that really taught me I didn't want to relapse anymore. And whatever teaches us that, I'm grateful for that, even though I hated it at the time. I thought, this is awful. This is my worst point in my life. I was in a rehab center, and I was out on bail for forging prescriptions. And this rehab center I'd been in looked a lot like this. It was Ridgefield over in Smyrna. No, this whole campus, kind of this woody thing, going on with the trees. And kind of reminiscent of it. And when I relapsed, they came back in and they said, I came back in and I figured, and oddly enough, I was going through a period of unusual and very rare business prosperity, which I'd wanted all my life. I didn't have very much money. And, but at this little blip, and that's in which I thoroughly enjoyed at the time, but it really fed into my addiction a lot, about me figuring out how life worked. And that came to be the coolest thing. The coolest thing I could do was to figure out how I could get as much pleasure into me whenever I wanted. And even though I was married, 3 young children, that wasn't important. That was the win, was to be able to do that, get rich, be able to just say to hell with the world and do whatever you wanted to do. And so I was kind of a funny thing now that I look back, and that was just dandy, because there was a time in the 90s and markets were really good. I do investment work, so I was the markets were lifting some things, and I had like doctor clients and stuff sending me little notes saying, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And I wasn't doing anything except sitting in an office crushing up pills and snorting them and thinking I was discovering something great, that I could feel like any age I wanted to. In fact, I could feel mellow, or I could feel energetic, right? And I thought that was part of this whole thing about life that I was figuring out, that I had found the keys. All I had to do was not really take the laws very seriously. And I was smart enough, obviously. And the markets didn't move because they just do that and they come back down. It was because of me. And I took credit for it. And all this stuff and talk now, I just wasn't old enough to know there's another side of that coin. And about 3 years clean, I lost everything. I had to go to my wife and say, the house isn't worth all these mortgages that I put on it, and we're going to lose this house, right? That was about 3 or 4 years clean. Again, it was an awful time. But I was being told and guided along by a higher power. I didn't really see at the time. I just thought I was, but that time, 3 or 4 years clean, I just started to recognize that something weird was happening to me that I really needed to be grateful for. At that rehab hospital, when I relapsed, they said, we don't want you to come back. And I said, no, wait a minute, I have all this money. I'm paying cash. I didn't want an insurance company to mess with it. I was crazy. And they said, we don't want you. And come on, Brad Pitt or those kind of Hollywood people, they go in 6, 7 times. That's me. I'm your perfect patient. And they said, look, you just don't have the attitude. And what do you mean attitude? I can do anything, and they said, not this. We're convinced. They told my wife, they said, he probably needs to go to prison for a couple of years, because again, I was guilty as hell of that forgery charge. And maybe spending 2 years in prison will give you some humility. And that really scared me for the first time of realizing that I couldn't figure a way out of it. They were my ticket. Those guys, me scamming them to get them to go into court and say, look, this is all a big mistake. I mean, he just lost his mind, and forged these prescriptions for 2 years, and they said, so here I was, I'd convinced an institution that I was better off in prison. And that was probably my worst time at the time. But people have told me, and I'll get to this in a minute, that actually in that moment when there wasn't any more drama, or bright lights or anything other than the fact I'm screwed. That was the feeling. And that was probably the best moment in my life. And people have told me because it was probably the hardest thing for me to do. And I try to tell newcomers that I had 2 of them call me. They were in my industry, the money thing, and arrogant as hell. And I swear I could see myself in their situation. But I had the benefit of all of your experience and all of this to be able to say, look, I can tell you what you're feeling. You don't have to explain it. And all of a sudden, when we do this with others that are struggling, they go, well, wait a minute. Yeah. I'm talking about private thoughts, attitudes, and things like that we know from hard experience. And what happens is we all have this gift of recovery that we can share, and we don't have to tell anybody what to do, and I'm not going to do it here. but we can explain, look, this is what happened to me when I was thinking just like you. And I had to go through more because I didn't get it. And I could have gotten it at any time. So what I bring all that up to say that that experience and those consequences, actually me being willing to suffer the consequences, was what got me to listen in these rooms to begin with, just a little. I didn't think I belonged. Later on, I was told that nobody that's a drug addict, an active drug addict, feels they belong in a clean environment. And that was so true. I didn't relate. And you hear all these stories about, I want to find a psychiatrist or psychologist that I relate to. For me, it was the opposite. I needed to find somebody, well, first of all, I needed to stop thinking and have no opinions. My wife actually told me that. And I actually finally sitting there, didn't do anything until I realized that day 2 or day 3 was a little bit better than day 1 by not doing anything. Just that's it. And for some reason, just that gave me enough to say, well, I can do that, just not do anything for 3 more days. And it was remarkable. The world was not really bent on making me miserable. They didn't give a crap. The police didn't give a crap. I was a problem. People weren't, there wasn't, anyway, I was just not a big deal. And the less I did, the better it was. So what I wanted to do here is talk about, we all have this, I feel I certainly have this part of me that gets tired, or more, not even tired, it's more of a lack of energy for recovery. It's where and I've noticed it in a lot of people, and some people can go to meetings for a while and then, they get a good amount of years and they go out. Not everybody relapses, but a lot do. And one of the things that happens is that, people lose the fellowship. I had a guy that I was sponsee and decided he could imbibe in adult beverages. And he actually could for a little while. And I'm staying in his life to play catch, but he said, I really miss the NA fellowship. You think I can come? Well, no. You can't come in a room and talk about how your life wasn't destroyed by having, by using. I didn't even want to hear about it. So, but the fellowship is a really big deal. But I wanted to simplify it all. That's about what do we do going forward when the inevitable happens that we need to rekindle our program. And that was probably has been the hardest thing for me to do early on. And I knew it. I knew when I was even in that rehab, when I was out on bail, that even if I could fool everybody, just a moment of clarity, that once I got out and I didn't have the consequences right in front of me, that I would be very tempted to use. And that's actually what led to the relapse. But what I actually prayed and said, how do I stay clean when I don't even want to stay clean? All right. But I know that once I get out, I'm not gonna feel like I feel now, which was not, oh, I want to be in recovery because recovery is so great. It's just merely get me out of everybody off my back. So I was more, I'm not a deep person. I was like, what happens when people aren't on my back anymore? And so what I wanted to do was, I didn't know immediately, but I wanted to explain kind of how I think about it and what other people have told me. One of the most important things is for me to remember is that all of us, but especially me, I don't know about, I'm more want to share my experience, but if you can use a little bit, and it might help you in those times to remember, I hope so. Why? Because when I was a newcomer, there were people that had 25 years that kept coming to meetings, would sit down and talk to me while I asked the most inane questions, cracked jokes with me, made me feel welcome. And I had no idea why. And why? Because when they were newcomers, somebody with a lot of time came, and it turns out they now knew that they saved their lives. And I owe those people. I owe them not so much the action, but I owe them the attitude that, and so that's why one of the reasons that I keep coming back, but I know that I'm just one bad decision away from a horrible life. And then 25 years, I'm telling you, I mean, in a lot of areas, I mean, or that bling in the merchandise store, I could grab it, run if I liked it, not pay for it. But I know that being in jail is probably not going to be very pleasant. And, but with us, but that's kind of easy to remember. A lot of people can remember that. Don't take stuff, don't rob. But for us, drugs are a whole nother matter. And I know I can talk myself into the fact that using may be a good idea. And that's what I don't want. And so what I've had to do is to be very simple. And the first thing is staying clean important to me? Because I can forget that, right? I mean, I can. I'm fully capable of it. Yeah, okay, that guy that occasionally imbibes, maybe I'm like that too, right? Maybe I could try it. And so the idea is it that important? What I've done is I sit down and I think through and bolt on consequences of actions, because I had this ability to remember and glamorize using. I don't even think I glamorize it. I mean, let's face it, using can be just a bundle of fun. I mean, especially in the early part, but I had a tendency to remember just the early part. And I had this ability to just not think about the consequences, the days and months and all that. And what I've made myself do is bolt on consequences with using, and it's just like, okay, it may feel good to stick my hand down in a jewelry case and grab all that, but there are consequences to it. So play the tape through. One of the ways that I also do that is through a gratitude list. I found those are just, you start, you don't know what to put on line one, you just, what is it that you can't buy that you're grateful for. I mean, you know. You could even start with, I'm really grateful to be able to stand on two legs, you know, to have two legs. There are people that don't. And if I'm really pressed, one time I put, when I couldn't think of anything, I'm grateful for oxygen. I mean, oxygen's really handy, right? But inevitably, the things start coming quicker. And it's pretty quick. And what that is my mind becomes more receptive. And all of a sudden, by the time I'm at 20, I'm just jotting them down. That is what really the lesson for me is, that I may not remember or acknowledge what, you know, the things that I need to be grateful for. So I need to stop and take a look. So when I look at what do I do, and let's all think we only have today, and what am I going to do going forward? What are the things that I plan? So the way I do this, and I think that's probably the most valuable thing in a group like this, is to say, okay, what are we going to do to stay clean? And the first thing was, okay, remind ourselves that it is important to stay clean. It's something big. My wife had told me before I came here that it was big, just to remind me. And it really is something that's the thing I'm most proud of in this world. And I look at what has worked for me, but also what has worked for you guys. And probably we'll have time to maybe everybody join in and talk about some of the things that you do. But I needed to know first, I like to know that something makes sense before I do it. That was my worst faults, and was, you know, the whole concept of a higher power. I had to know how that worked. You know, I mean, scientists don't necessarily accept it as science, or how do you, if I can't figure it out, it doesn't exist. That was one. And so I look for the things that, the first thing that's easy for me to discard, and one of those is prayer. I still haven't figured out how it works, but it's the least obvious thing. But I do it anyway. All right. And I also, and I don't want to stop doing it because of the potential consequences we've already talked about. But it's not hard. I say all 12, I said the 12 steps up until every morning, up to the one I was working on. So now I'm all the 12 steps, just saying them to make sure I remember them, whether I can sit there long enough to get through them. And it really doesn't take a lot of time, and it's simple, and I'll do it. And the serenity prayer. I don't know how it works, but my life is so much better than using. I want to keep doing that. The second thing is going to meetings regularly and hanging out with people like this. This is why I thought it'd be a good idea for me to just hang out with other people in recovery and celebrate recovery. I found that's one of the most important things, because you're never going to get all you need to know about recovery in one sitting or one class. Right? And the most important thing for me was the sharing of fellow addicts, because we do have an incredible, magical, spiritual ability to heal each other and to relate to one another. I mean, I don't even care what country people come. I've gotten to think about when we share in meetings. I mean, we're sharing some of the most intimate stuff that of our and other people's lives. You just don't hear it in a grocery line. And we get to hear that of other people, how they manage. And it's a valuable lesson, and it teaches me to the things, and it reminds me of the things other people are doing and what people don't do. So someone quits coming to meetings, and then inevitably you'll see them come back in. I've never seen anybody go out and just feel wonderful about it. And that shows me. I had one guy who had 1 year, and then so when I came in, he was you know who this is, but he got 12 years and I had 11. And he went out and it was a disaster. He just came back and he just got 10 more. He's just getting 10 years for the third time. But I opened my eyes, huh? 12 years. Is it? Okay. Didn't shortchanged him there. Yeah. But I really felt, and by observing that this was a message to me, because I was at 11, that I needed to be careful, because even with 11 years, you can we can convince ourselves that using might be a good idea. And I really feel that was put there for me. The other thing that's difficult for me is to submit and surrender, and that's do what somebody else says. That whether I make sense to me or not. Again, that's the ego part of, if I can't figure it out, or especially if I don't want to do it, I don't want to. That made it hard for me to have a sponsor. But I found that submission is not a new concept. I mean, it's and the power of it. Doing something that you may not want to do, but doing it because it's, and I don't only say the right thing, like morally, I'm saying it's the thing that'll make your life better, like not stealing jewelry, you know. And early on, I had to have somebody tell me what that was. When I was told not to have an opinion, people told me what to do. You know, can I go to the bathroom? Yes, you can go down there, come back, sign this piece of paper, you know. But it taught me that it's an exercise to do what my sponsor says, because my sponsor doesn't ask me to do stuff. What he does is he tests my willingness. And it's both my sponsor and my higher power have this little game that they're going to take me to the edge of consequences to test my willingness. And if I'm willing, most times I get pulled back from the abyss. Oh yeah, we just wanted to see if you were really willing, or you're still hard-headed and you needed to have those consequences. That's what happened to me. And the three things that I think all of that adds up to are acceptance of who we are, which is a humbling thing, knowing that, I mean, that as much as I thought of myself, I really have a screw loose. So if y'all are wondering, I mean, I think it's delightful now, but we're just not right, you know? And it's, but we can manage, and a lot of times having that screw loose and also being resourceful enough to stay is something that makes us good employees. It makes us good employers and good friends, spouses, and a ton of other things. And I'll give you an example from my life. Somebody said, yeah, well, talk about your experience and that, you know, that when you might be gone astray. And Rodney said that. I mean, I said, all right, happened this afternoon. And I was talking to a guy who's 29 years in recovery, went to high school with him. We were talking about this, and I asked him, I said, what do you do? And in recovery, he says, well, I had a really deep religious background, and I believed a lot. So actually that can make the idea of submission, and I've found a little bit easier, a little bit clearer, because you know, there, like I said, it's not lost. Submission and surrender to a set of principles is not nothing new. And he started to mention, though, that yeah, he was over in China with he ran a business for a long time, seeing clients, and he only took like one toast and of alcohol, and he didn't like it. And then like 5 years ago, he said, yeah, you know, I took a couple of sips of beer, and you know, that's all. And lo and behold, even though I said I was flabbergasted, 29 years is what he said, and I wasn't going to call him on it. It's his business. I'm talking about what happened in my head. At first, I was flabbergasted. But in that moment, after we hung up, and I'm not proud of this, but there was a little thought that crept in my mind. Wow, he's like my spiritual brother. He's got 29 years and he could take a sip of beer, right? For a moment. And this is just an example I wanted to share just from this afternoon. I had to stop and think through the consequences. I had to think about, where am I? I'm in a car driving to a convention to celebrate recovery.
Right.
All right. And what's the difference between me and him? I haven't had to do that, or haven't done that. All right. Why? Why wouldn't I do it? Well, because I cannot risk it. Another way of saying, I can't afford it. There's no way 2 swallows of beer, which I know it wouldn't happen. I have no business even being in that, even thinking that. And then it kind of scared me a little bit. Back into, you're getting ready to tell some people how you handle things. So I just wanted to let you know that I've never found that forgetting stuff, or forgetting to do, you know, to work, to do recovery, to hang out with people in recovery, and to talk recovery. The idea that you can forget to do all that never seemed to go away from me. But when it comes back, I don't have to deal with it for long. And even if I don't feel like, wow, I will eventually feel, in fact, right now, I'm thinking, right now, it's occurring to me, not right then, I'm not that smart, but it's occurring to me that was a good idea to think. That's stupid for me to ever think that, because I'm just not that quick, but I have to deal with it. I mean, I had to deal like when I was the moron I was, and that was the acceptance when I came in, and I still have to deal with it. But getting years in recovery is the greatest thing I've done for myself, for my wife of now 36 years. 3 children have had a completely different life, and not by me teaching them anything, just having an average, stable father, but mainly watching someone figure out the very hard to figure out thing of how to do something really, really difficult. So that's, I don't know how long that is, but no. So what we can do is, yeah, probably end up sharing, y'all can pitch in and talk about how, y'all might. How y'all, have rekindled the flame, but first we have Dee, who's, I guess, is it time?
If you're done, Deacon.
Yeah, I'm done for now.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you, Lee.
And our second speaker is DC.
My name is Dee. I'm an addict.
Hey, Dee.
Um,
Can't believe it.
thank you for that. My clean date is July 6, 2013. I'm going through a pretty painful breakup right now at the moment. So just like if I start getting scatterbrained, just bear with me. And I feel like that's so on par with this topic, right? Like, I do not want to be fucking doing recovery right now, like at all. Like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be smiling and meeting people and oh my God, you're in the right place. I don't want to. I want to be fetal position in my bed, curled up with the blankets and my dogs and left alone. But unfortunately, I have done that before and it got really lonely and it got really ugly too. And I know that I don't want to go down that path today. There's been a lot of different times, well, not a lot, but a few times in my recovery where I have found myself like drifting away from the program and then having the realization of like, I want to get back in it, but I don't have it in me. Like that newcomer, like desperation, like my life is on the line. I know I need to be here desperation. And it's really hard when you get in those places. Like hitting a weird kind of like numb bottom in recovery, but not really wanting to resort to recovery to fix it. But again, there are these things in place, these like suggestions that we give each other, and they're drilled into our heads. At least it was when I first came around. Like, go to 90 meetings in 90 days, get a sponsor, get a network, use it, start working step work and everything. And I made all those habits when I first came around. The other part of my story is I did not pick up just one white key tag. So I got my experience of not doing the basics, of like going and just isolating in my bed, like where that really fucking leads. Like it's not where I want it to go. There was a time in my recovery where I got a resentment towards an entire area. Actually, yeah, it was just the entire fellowship. And I decided I'm not going to fucking meetings anymore with your bullshit. And I continued to live my life, and I somehow was able to stay clean for a little over a year. I had moved to another area, but I didn't know anybody in that area because I hadn't been to any meetings. I started having health problems, and I found out I was going to have surgery, which was my biggest fear in recovery. I still like kind of held on to a sponsor throughout that time frame of not going to meetings. And I called her when this happened. And I mean, we pick our sponsors because we pick our sponsors. Like, not my sponsor is not going to be great for you, and your sponsor is not going to work for me. But my sponsor fucking was great for me when like, each one has been what I needed at that point. And I called this woman and she said, all right, you know how I always give you suggestions on what to do? She's like, this is what the fuck you need to do to stay clean. And you need to go to a meeting every single day. You live inside the perimeter of Atlanta right now. You have no excuse of not being able to make a meeting every single day right now. I don't care if you show up late. I don't care if you only show up for before and you got to leave to go to work right after. You raise your hand, you introduce yourself, you say, I don't want to be here. Thanks for letting me share. I did. And then I started sharing, like, I don't want to be here. I'm about to have surgery. My sponsor told me to do this. Thanks for letting me share. Within 2 weeks leading up to the day of surgery, these people in this new area got together, made shifts on who's going to come stay with me in my apartment. These strangers. And they brought meetings to my apartment. I was still trying to dope fiend some shit, and I'm like, who are you allowing in my house? Who did you invite? But it didn't matter. And when I started going back to these meetings, I received that warm, welcoming unity, love that I felt when I was first a newcomer all over again. And it reminded me, like, this is a 12-step fellowship. This is Narcotics Anonymous. It is based on literature. It is not based on human beings. And at the end of the day, we have personalities, and our personalities are not always going to fucking click. That's just the way it is. And that's okay. But you can go find your tribe somewhere else. Letting resentments run me out of the rooms, I'm really embarrassed about today, actually. Because my ego is like, I'm so above letting that happen. But it does. And it sneaks up on you. Like, this disease is cunning. And like lately, I don't want to be going to meetings right now. I don't want to be sharing about this breakup. I feel like it's so, like, oh, like, oh, you're going through a breakup. Oh, poor thing. Like it's something I minimize in my mind, and I'm embarrassed to talk about it for some reason. But the reality is I am in a lot of fucking pain, and the only place I know to get some fucking medicine is here. I wanted to call Tiffany and be like, yeah, I got COVID, I can't come. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna make it. I wanted to bail so bad. There have been people that have been so nice to me since I walked in, and I have been a fucking dick to them since I walked in. I apologize. It's crazy how strong our emotions can all of a sudden dictate what we do, even. Like, not just where our mind goes, but like what we fucking do. And I'm really, really fucking grateful that I had to hit my head for years to find out, like, no. I can't just go drink. And I can't just go do that. Like I figured it all out. That I can't. I absolutely can't. I'll die. And because of that, I know that it's life or death for me. And I have to save my life at the end of the day because I'm not responsible for my disease. I'm responsible for my recovery. I don't really know what else to say. I'm really grateful to be here. Yeah, thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, David. All right, so we have some extra time. If we're gonna open the floor, if you do want to share for 3 to 5 minutes. Raise your hand and I'll call on you. And then we'll stop about 5 or 10 minutes before the meeting, before the time is up. Anyone, go ahead, say it.
I'm an addict and my name is David.
Hey, David.
Thanks for all the shares. I'm excited, happy that I was able to be here. I'm here this weekend to rekindle my recovery. When pandemic hit, I stopped going to meetings like a lot of people. And then I kind of sort of did virtual meetings, but I made a decision that I wasn't NA, so I wasn't going up like protesting. And eventually I got into virtual meetings. And then the meetings started back, my home group started back July last year in person. I haven't been to my home group since it started that. I haven't had a home group since July last year. That's never happened in the time that I've been a member of NA. I've talked to my sponsor twice in the last 6 months. Both times he's called me. My sponsor thinks the world of me. He thinks I like have the greatest recovery in the world. He just loves me that much that he checks in with me. It's the first time in my recovery that I can recall that I haven't had a service commitment. Those are the things that let me know that I'm a part of Narcotics Anonymous and I'm recovering, that I'm involved in service. I talk to my sponsor regularly. I'm involved in my own group. I made a decision 2 weeks ago to register to be here because I know that I can make a decision at any time to start my recovery over. So I'm here this weekend and reconnect to this. Oh, I did go to a meeting about a week or 2 ago in North Atlanta. A friend of mine invited me up here. And meeting for the newcomers, and I had the audacity to share that I don't even like NA anymore. It just came out. And then I thought about that's pretty egotistical not to like a program to save my life. The one for Narcotics Anonymous, I would be here. I know that without a doubt. So I just wanted to make amends for that, for saying that. I don't know if any of you were there, but if you were, if you wanted, I just want to say that out loud. But I'm here to rekindle my recovery. I'm here to get back and be a good member of Narcotics Anonymous. Loving being a part of this fellowship, recognize how valuable it is. How important it is for me to show up. In case somebody shows up for the very time.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for sharing.
My name's Doug, recovery addict.
Hey, Doug.
Oh, man, so I started this intermittent fast. And I have to stop eating by 7 o'clock. So I rushed down here before stopping to get something to eat. So if y'all see me up here just eating, I apologize, right? Like trying to get in before 7 o'clock. But this is my first time in Georgia region.
Welcome.
Be here. So as I get in here, I see on my network, see some of my work feel that all the way from New York. And I'm like, wow. What recovery is. Us getting rekindled and getting back in touch, right? Thank y'all both for y'all these. Thank you for my service. I had a resentment against the whole area. Right? I'm the secretary for the West End area, or I was, and I'm doing all of these things, and I want to do all of these things because recovery has saved my life, and everyone else is just blah blah blah. And I see NA dying. Like this is Georgia region, this whole motherfucker should be full, right? Like where are all of the recovering addicts in Georgia? That's what I'm thinking I'm gonna come see, right? Like just like world. Yeah. And I say to my ass, I miss dinner just to sit in a sit in a workshop, right? You know, that's how serious I am about my recovery. And it's the same thing. I got a resentment against my home group too. Want to leave my home group. I'm sharing everywhere how my home group is. We're out of the pandemic and they want to stay on Zoom. And you know, why aren't we out there saving the next recovering addict? And how can I have a resentment? It's an area and the group that saved my life. These men taught me how to be men. Truly grateful to be here. Glad y'all were here. Glad everyone in this room was here. Serenity Keeper. My name's Doug. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank
Great, Doug.
Hi, Rihanna, I'm an addict.
Hey, Rihanna.
Grateful to be clean and a meeting on Narcotics Anonymous and, you know, I remember a time when I couldn't say that I was grateful to be in a meeting. Right. Hot Rod, thanks for, stepping up and doing some service. Yeah, thank you both for sharing. You know, like, I'm grateful that I am not terminally unique as much as my brain likes to tell me. You know, my brain, I have, you know, just like they say, like I have that, you know, low self-esteem, but I'm all I think about type personality, right? Like, you know, I'm the best thing, but I'm a piece of shit at the same time, right? And, you know, with, you know, I have multiple white key tags, and that's not that it's a, you know, a good thing, right? Like, but it was, you know, it was obviously, you know, I always heard that, you know, if, you know, you, keep doing the basics, then you don't have to go back to the basics. And that's the thing is I didn't keep doing the basics. I didn't follow those four sides of the coin. You know, and yeah, I mean, cool, I get it. Like you said, right? Like this program, it's a 12-step program. You know, the program's perfect, the people aren't. But I'm the fucked up addict. I had a resentment against the fourth step. Like, and I would come back to fucking NA when I was using because fucking, excuse me, you know, screw NA, right? Like, because I didn't get healed. My outsides or my insides didn't look like your outsides when you did the fourth step. So I had a resentment against that. And that kept me from coming back when I was using for the longest time, right? But also what outside of that internal desperation and that, you know, that deadness, what brought me back was this to the program of Narcotics Anonymous were the people at the same time, right? Like those people that when I seen y'all's outsides, right, you still kept coming at me, right? Like you still kept reminding me, right? Like, hey, remember, you know, here's a seat, we've been waiting for you, right? And so that is kind of what helped for me, help rekindle my desire to step back into Narcotics Anonymous, my desire to get both feet wet and get in and do, you know, do those basics, right? Like, and so, you know, I am just, you know, I'm grateful that this is my second Georgia GRCNA, and I'm on the committee second year in a row. And I'm grateful for that. You know, I've gone to, you know, back up in Seattle, like I've done my conventions up there, but I've always been on one side. So I have a lot more gratitude. So thank you to the committee, even more, for being able to continue, right, to, you know, 41.575. I don't know, was that 39.5 last year? Yeah, so 2 years ago. But you know, thank you all for keep putting this on so an addict like me has a place to go when I ain't got or don't want to go anywhere else. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing.
My name's Asa.
Hey, Asa.
Miracle they called in. He is celebrating 12 years for the third time, Crossroad Church of Gunnery, April 20th, 7:30 PM. That's 4805 Philly Mill Road. And she stole my thunder. I was gonna say, if you don't, ever leave the base, you don't have to get back. But, so I was always presented with that, so in early recovery, I was down Stockbridge and I was, I didn't have any fucking ties to anything or anywhere or nothing. I knew NA was keeping me clean, but I could go anywhere, do it. I was actually looking at work in Antarctica. Contract, we're driving a fucking forklift down in Antarctica, fuck, I drive one up there, go down there and make tons of money in 6 months from right here. Anyhow, so I was thinking, and that's the loose shit that I was thinking, right? So I said, well, fuck, let me be GSRA. Right. 2 months later, Tom's the fuck, I'm out here. So I was GSR. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any training. I had 2 months. No. Just barely met the requirements to be GSRA. And that just seems to happen in my life. I came to the Gretna, Georgia Regional Convention back when 8 years ago, Gunn was chair. And I was just gonna see what happens. And the door shut off behind me. And I was merchandise chair for 5 minutes. But what I did is I took the vice chair position, knowing it was a 2-year commitment. Because I needed to be committed. Kind of to this and to silent. And that's why I did that GSRA, is because I knew it was a 2-year commitment. And it tied me down, and so I finally, if I wasn't interviewed, the saying that I like is, if you don't stand up for something, you go fall, right? And so I tied myself to narcotics, and then I stuck around long enough to become chair and whatever and board member, and so the board member commitment is 2 3-year terms. So that's 6 years. I'll be done with my first term a year. So I don't know if I've left the basics. I can do that in a daily basis. I can lose my gratitude. I can not want to be, I can be going through problems with family and relationships. I can be going through problems with work or lack thereof. And, and I lose my gratitude for this split second. And I forget that I'm alive, that I'm clean, didn't use today. I really, with all that shit going on, I really don't even think about using. I finally can say that I have lost the desire to use it. I don't know if it'll ever come back. So the message of Narcotics Anonymous is quit, but lose the desire to use it and find a new way to live. I've been finding that new way to live, and now I can say that middle one, lose the desire to use, I think I have. Because like I said, I'm going through a lot of heavy stuff. He's one of my confidants, so I'm talking to it, and I haven't thought of using them for any of it. So I'm just, I've been a part of this convention for 8 years, and I think this is the 3rd workshop I've been able to sit in just because I shut my radio off. Thanks for letting me be in this.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Ace.
Hey, Eddie.
First and foremost, I think they another chance to participate in the church for our life. And thank God for sharing. I needed to hear that. I had over 31 years. My disease tell me I can't had it myself. I got clean in North New Jersey for my mother. She gave me birth twice. My mother clean date March 4th, 92. My clean date is not 14th, 92. And she passed, she had to mention that. I was abused, I was verbally abused. I had the fingernails stayed back in the fifth grade. Got chased home from school all the damn time. I killed a little Jersey bird, young as hell. Bob Lee said, "Why you killed my bird?" I ran, in and out of the car, got hit, pissed on myself, rolled over, kept on running. The man said, "Hold up," I was so fucking shocked that they was gonna beat me up. And I ran up 8 flights of stairs, man, took my pussy shit off and doing the cinema. Now, like years later, I rekindle my recovery by keep my step work current. And thank God for sponsorship. Cause, we had a pamphlet, the meeting day. All right, that shit, fuck that. You got 30 years now, motherfucker. What's going on today? So now I have custom tailor-made questions for my personal self, meaning my responsible that I need to look at. And I have fresh insight because I had a problem of having, with women. I'm just saying, I've been a single parent. I took care of my mother till she passed. My father, disease said, now I can do me. And I started recycling my exes. And my sponsor said, you had to stop doing that. Because what happened is I found out the defect in that is being insensitive with women. And another defect is greed. I always want more than my fair share. So now when I do the 10 step, now in the 10 step, I get the first insight. Now I gotta go back to the previous 9 steps, maybe I'm powerless, now I get the second, the defects, I'm learning now. I gotta know I really can do. And the stage for 30 years, I need to stay enthusiastic about recovery. And that's the only way I'll find it. That's another way, or the best way I find it is about keeping my head current and learn more. This is more we can do. If you haven't done it clean, you haven't done it. I'm retired. I could do a high rises in New Jersey, New York, being cooperative, and I retired at 57. I'm 62 now. And I had to reinvent myself when the pandemic came. Right? Because everything shut down. And I tried different model car kits because Bobby had the car model kit that had it. I was too poor to have one. It was on welfare. He had airplanes and shit. I was like, man, I wanted to, so I started doing that. Right? I did a couple of it, the euphoria wore off. And I said, you know what? I said, watch Tour de France. And I bought me a damn bike. And I bought it there. I bought all the tough vanilla of a cyclist. I got the I wear spandex. In there, I had the shirt on, the gloves, man. I got on the bike. I was in ass brake pump out the shirt I was riding. The first day my ass was on fire, and I kept riding. And I came to Georgia. I'm from New Jersey, right? I've been here a year and a couple of months. And I got with the cycling team. And they made me a bona fide cyclist. I have learned how to change the flat. I ain't changed the flat since I was like 17. And that's part of this. Oh my God, I'm living. Listen, I'm in a journey. Life is, I'm listening. Back in the days, the old saying, you only live once. So, but man, that shit died with the pandemic. I can't tell you how many times I write my condolences since the pandemic. And today's world for me is you only die once, you live every day, so make every day count. I make every day count. Because you hate the day and gone tomorrow, man, So I'm enjoying recovery again. I stay on top of my step work. My sponsor here, I had to write 3 examples of how I applied the steps or how I didn't apply the steps. What assets did I recognize today? So I got these questions I asked myself there, and I was driving here, and I just always go through a fucking yellow light. And then he saw it, and he like, so this, why you keep going through that? This is right, it's not like your life. He said, it got a minute and a half, spill, right? He said, it's got a minute and a half. Maybe God wants you to think about what's your mind, stay in the world, man. Simple shit like that. So every time I see a yellow light, I'm stopped.
Because now that might be a way of God telling me to stay in the moment. I'm from the city, I'm so hyped. I think about what's going on, what happened this morning that did that trigger some in me. Then, oh man, sponsorship is the key. You know, that's my first time here, and I love you. And y'all still, it reminded me of the goddamn doing the camp. When I came here, oh shit, it's like doing the camp, cause I went to, in New York, it was Recovery in the Woods. We stayed in fucking cabins and they had a building with the bell. Like, great, this shit was cool as hell. I'm loving it. I'm just watching Beards, so I know they got Beards, I still watch that. I'm not thinking I'm the shooter.
Thanks for that.
Christian.
Hey, Christian.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to the topic. Thank you for y'all shares. Thank you for the lead. Good service. I know for me, like when I got clean around a bunch of people that were like generally, I came in, went to some meetings, and then there was like people my age around, and there was like, they invited me in, and there was like 10, 5 to 10 dudes that I was like, I looked up to them, and I was like, okay, these guys are having fun, they're clean, I don't have to live the way I was living, I can do what they're doing. And then it was like kind of slowly staying clean. It was like, okay, well now there's 8. And then, give it a year or 2 more. It's like, well, it's just 4 of us now. And it was the same thing every time, every single time with everybody that I got clean with, that I felt such a bond with. It was kind of like they stopped going to it. There was a guy that used to come to my home group, and I hope he's doing well, but I don't know if he is. And he would say, like, first you're too busy. No, first you're too tired, then you're too busy, then you can't make it, then you're too hot, right? And he doesn't come around anymore. And so that's kind of like one of the things where it's like, that was your saying. And it was the same thing with everybody, it was like I saw him every week, and then I saw him every couple weeks, and then I saw him once a month, and then I'd see him and be like, dude, it's been a while, where you been at? And then it was nobody's seen him. Hope he's doing good. And then it was like, well, he's back, and he's coming back. And then the resentment that I got, because like I definitely have drifted from the program, was after my friend, that it was like kind of just me and him at one point. After he and his girlfriend had started they didn't tell him, they were like, no, we just don't want to go to meetings. Then like a year and a half later, I still hung out with them, reasonably, every month or 2. Somebody's like, yeah, we saw him drinking, dude. We saw him drinking at the bar. You gotta be careful. They didn't do it around me. But then like after they had been, went out and we talked about it, they're like, yeah, we just do normal people shit, the kind of stuff where it's like watching out for somebody that's out there. And I keep in contact with them, but I'm careful about that, because I don't want to go. To me, it feels like not a big deal. It's like, this is my brother, I can go hang out with him. Like, he doesn't even, he acts like it doesn't exist around me. But then people in recovery tell me, maybe don't go over there by yourself. Do lunch, don't do dinner, stuff like that. But I definitely at one point was just like, okay, I got clean. I've been clean for a while now. All my friends are clean. And then it was like, well, all my friends aren't. So what do I got to go do something. I can't just sit around and wait to be the next one. So I got to this point where I was going to my home group every week. And that was it. Didn't go anywhere but my home group. And the home group was pretty small. And we COVID hit. And it was really small, no church to go. We're stuck outside. And we were doing it in a park for a while, like 5 people. And I was super grateful for that, but like after COVID kind of got, wrapped up and was less restrictions, I hit a point where I was just like, dude, I got to go do more. Because I feel like at this point, it's like my recovery is just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And so like the things, it's so funny because it was like getting clean again. Like, because I would be like, okay, I got to hit 2 meetings this week. I can't just go to 1. And I'd hit a new meeting and I'd go over there and I'd be like, oh, I don't know any of these people. I see this guy at a meeting. I'd be like standing there like, somebody come talk to me. And then also I don't have the newcomer patience. I don't have the newcomer willingness. I'm not going to stand there for 20 minutes hoping somebody talks to me. But that kind of is what it took. I had to go to meetings and be humble. Eventually change my home group, which was the biggest thing. As soon as I change my home group, I get around new people, revitalizes the recovery, because all of a sudden I'm not hearing the same message from the same 5 people. And my home group was, I'm clean because of that. But there was a guy there that like kind of pushed me to. He was like, yeah, dude, service, you do GSRA. Like somebody else at church, you do GSRA. And then from week 1, he's like, you're going to area though. We got to get you to area with me. So
And I haven't seen him. I think I gotta go to my old home group and my new home group are on the same night. So wow. But yeah, like going to meetings and like trying to do the same things that I did when I got clean is definitely a different vibe, but for me, it took the same kind of willingness. So like, I had to go chill. I would go with a buddy sometimes. That always helped, go meet somebody down there. But it definitely it does feel like kind of like coming back. I don't really like hold it against myself for like getting to that like smaller size recovery, but at the same time, it feels good to kind of like try and re-engage. And it's cool because this is the first group I've been to since before COVID. I think I went to the one right before COVID happened. And it was cool. I got to come out and I was like, oh shit, I know a ton of people. And now I'm back and I'm like, okay, my buddies know a ton of people. No, a couple of them. So that's cool. But it's I'm just glad to be here. Thank you for y'all doing the service. So we how to make it to me. Thank you for that. Sure.
Thanks, Christian.
Thank you.
Hey, my name's Nick, I'm an addict.
Hey, Nick.
Hey, Nick.
Thank y'all for being here, thank you for your service as well. Thanks for everybody here as well. Rekindling my recovery, what it's been like for me. I just went on a year sober. I just got out of a relationship, just broke up with my ex-girlfriend or whatever. Yeah, it's been rough for me. I've felt like so lonely the last couple weeks, and I've had to change kind of the meetings I go to. And it's not that the meetings I was going to weren't working for me, but it's just hearing the same message now. And it's nothing wrong with that. It's just I had to just change people, places, and things, but like in the recovery world, but also like minimize me and grow my HP. That's been the biggest thing, because when I do what I want to do all the time, it's different from what God wants me to do, and so it's two different worlds. And so like I haven't gotten close to relapse or anything. I haven't had no desire to use. Thoughts of using, yes, but no like concrete desire. I'm grateful for that. But yeah, it's been huge for me to just go to new meetings, and get vulnerable with new people, and just trying to grow my network a little more. It's been a tough year for me. I'm currently on house arrest, but I get to do recovery, and come to meetings, and it's my first event. So
Welcome.
I live right down the street. I take my bike here. I can't drive, but I put all I got into my recovery. All I have is a daily reprieve. So when I put myself in a place of recovery, whether it's even going to volunteer at the thrift store, that's just been so huge for my recovery. Like I said, minimizing me and growing the community, growing the family I'm in, growing my HP. Because y'all, like, the way my HP works is y'all remind me of who I am and how I can be one decision away from making a mistake. And I get to come to meetings. Like, I don't need to, but I get to. I got a seat here. It's awesome. And there's days where I don't feel like it, but when I come, I don't always remember the message that was said, but it changes the way I feel. And I leave the room and it feels good, yeah, I'm really grateful that, GRCNA was really right, like it's in my backyard, like that's cool, like God's doing some really amazing stuff. And I don't know, like I said, I need to minimize me because I get so self-obsessed and I think I know it all. I need to remain teachable, and that's something that my sponsor has told me. You gotta remain teachable. I think I know it all. I'm only 25, and I think I know it all. Woo! And so yeah, like I said, I rekindling my recovery. This is a great meeting. I need to be here. I'm grateful that I'm here. So, thank you.
Thanks for letting share.
Glad you're here.
I'm Catherine. Automatic.
Hey, Catherine.
Sorry we were late, but we got here late, but we came here. We found this meeting, so we came, dropped in, but wow, routine. I retired 2 weeks before the pandemic hit. And I moved here from California, Southern California. So, and my recovery was way up here and I was all ready, having a good time and everything. And then, boy, didn't know anybody. Didn't know anybody in recovery. There were no meetings in my town. The only thing that saved me was the Zoom. Wasn't for Zoom. I just, and they were meetings, they weren't Zoom meetings. They aren't Zoom meetings, I know, but they're on Zoom, But anyway, and it was hard. It was, I'm just now getting to know where the meetings are, and I live out in the country and we've done it. We have 16 acres out there, and there's no street lights. Like in Southern California, we have meetings galore, and I come here and I love it here, but I just haven't really connected with a few people. I connected when they have the Zoom meetings for the convention. They had them on Zoom, and I met one person, I reached out and, give me somebody coming, one lady called me, and I'm waiting as today, birds like this, she's my buddy. And this is my buddy from Southern California, who came to go to the convention with me, because we're convention junkies, and we travel. 2 or 3 times a year, we're on the road, literally on the road. And I love it, that's my thing, is traveling. And that was when I retired, that's what I planned to do, and by the grace of God, God's been able to provide that for me. And I never thought this would happen, but boy, man, I just gotta find more meetings and more people and connect, and I did, man. I went to the Wednesday meeting that was in Lovejoy, is that what it's called? Yeah, that where I met you. But anyways, I met somebody else. Yeah, that's how it works, and to put myself out there. I'm not a person who likes to put themselves out there, I'm a agoraphobic. I like staying at home, in my little 12 by 12 closet, it's comfortable. And I have to get out of my comfort zone, and that's the hardest thing. So yeah, so then I met another lady there who's from McDonough, and she just lives right down there. What a miracle, so it took a little while, but God's doing to me what I can't do for myself. And that's all.
Thanks for sharing.
All right, that's about all the time we have. Like to thank everyone for attending. We'll circle up and close with the Wee version of the Serenity Prayer.
You don't get to get You are. Let's have a moment of silence for the sick and suffering addicts, both inside and outside of the circle, followed by the. Any of us have said. Laid.
That was really. I admire.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm going. I think. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry.
I'm like that all the time.
Yeah, man. Man.
No, it is.
Well,
Some you don't read the prices, like a
I
debt.
know.
That's all it is, it's reading prices. Remember somebody who's still alive.
Yeah, man.
And Z said, what if?
And you know what's fucked up?
One more time.
Yeah. What's fucked up is like. If it was a death, I'm used to that.
Right, right.